Gentlelady yields. The gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Timmons, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Fudge, thank you for being here today. It's good to see you again after 2 long years. Unfortunately, the changes in the housing market really haven't been positive in the last 2 years. Affordability has become a critical issue. Mortgage payments and rent are skyrocketing. Millions of Americans have to allocate more of their income towards simply putting a roof over their head. It's no surprise that homelessness is growing nationwide. Your agency's mission is to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing, and I'm disheartened to say that that's no longer the case for many Americans. In the most recent HUD point-in-time count report, your agency found that homelessness has increased by over 12% compared to 2022. Specifically, the report found that more than 650,000 people experience homelessness on any given night in America, which represents the highest level since 2007. In addition, the number of people who became homeless for the first time increased by a staggering 25% between 2021 and 2022, and these numbers have grown despite the number of beds available to homeless populations increasing by 6% during last year alone. So I have my own thoughts on what's causing all of these challenges. What do you think are the main drivers of these troubling trends?
There are a number of things. As you look at the fact that senior citizens are becoming some of the fastest groups of people that are homeless today, it's because they live on fixed incomes like Social Security, which we don't increase. When you talk about families with children, many of those persons do not have jobs because for whatever reason, once we lost the resources or they sunsetted from the COVID packages, people were put in a position where they could not pay the rent anymore because there were no assistance. People were put in a position where we did not have enough shelter beds or enough congregation.
Do you think that the inflation resulting from the trillions of dollars that were spent over the last few years is causing part of this? I think that might be the number one cause, and I think the number two cause is probably the lawlessness at our southern border, where millions and millions of illegal immigrants are coming into this country, and they're straining our resources. And before you answer that, you just were speaking with my friend from Wisconsin, and you said that there are no illegal immigrants, I'm sure you're going to call them asylum seekers, that jump ahead of the line and get resources and benefits.
Not from us.
From the government.
I'm talking about HUD. I only talk about HUD.
Okay, well, just yesterday, the mayor of New York City closed a school in Brooklyn and bussed 2,000 illegal immigrants there, and they're currently riding out a storm for a couple of days. I mean, do you think that maybe...
That has nothing to do with HUD.
Well, can you tell me that there were no community development block grant funds used to help facilitate that decision?
I have no idea what funds
Do you think that they shouldn't use federal funds to prioritize housing illegal immigrants over American citizens?
It's not my job to tell mayors how to run their cities.
Well, it's our job to tell them what to do with federal dollars.
Should.
Okay.
And it's fine. You should do that.
Okay, so, but you do agree that it would be less than appropriate for state and local governments to use federal dollars to prioritize illegal immigrants over American citizens that are experiencing homelessness. Would you agree with that?
I would say I hope that they are not.
Okay, I appreciate that. Would you look into whether any of the CDBG funds are being used? Or, I mean, is that something that we need to take up directly with the state and local governments?
I think you should.
Okay.
But to get back to your question, inflation is not the number one issue for rising housing costs. It is supply. It is lack of supply.
So when a developer, somebody's going to build a home, is looking at an interest rate of 8%, the math's all off. Because if you're going to buy a $250,000, $300,000 house in South Carolina 3 years ago, your mortgage payment's going to be around $1,000. And that's something that a lot of people can afford if you're making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. But when the interest rate's at 8%, which, by the way, it is now because the federal government spent trillions of dollars that we didn't have, that mortgage payment is more like $2,300 to $2,500. And their rent or their mortgage can't go up 150% when their wages probably went up 5 or 10%. So, I mean, that is a direct result of...
But I would say to you that the problem existed when the interest rates were 4%. We have had a lack of supply for many years.
I can only speak for my district. In 2019, 2020, even before the pandemic, things were going great, and everybody that wanted to purchase a house had a good-paying job, and the house was affordable because interest rates were low. That's not the case anymore. And I
Homeless
guess
numbers was just as bad then.
I would imagine that's probably relative to geography, because again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.